I did not just buy one. I ended up buying all 6. Why? Because the barrier of entry was so low, it seemed like it was impossible. It was $50,000 for roughly a 700 square foot house that was renting for $800. So I could not just buy one. I ended up buying all 6. Here's the real truth. I didn't know where I was going to get the money from. I just knew that it was such a good deal that I was going to find a way, come hell or high water, to purchase all of these homes for $300,000.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schlow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. I'm so glad to have Dr. Erin Hudson joining us today on the podcast. There's been multiple attempts, so I'm glad that we're able to get this recording going today. She is a physician turned investor, serial entrepreneur. She's an operator in the multifamily space. She went from 26 doors that she acquired really quite quickly, which we'll talk about, to over 2,600 units in a 7-figure portfolio. Erin's journey has been awesome to follow. She is a blend of grit, service, intentional wealth building, and she's awesome. So Dr. Erin Hudson, welcome to the podcast.
Wow. That's quite the intro. It is so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm in healthcare, but I just want to make a quick correction. It's actually Doctor of Chiropractic, but yes, it's an honor to be here for sure.
Hey, still counts. That is awesome.
That's right.
Glad you're here. And thank you for what you do in the chiropractic space and in the real estate space as well. So I love it. More and more of us, in the healthcare world need as much information and knowledge as we can get, because we did not get any financial education in med school or chiropractic school, I imagine. That's as right. Well. So all the more, the better. So really excited to follow and share your journey. Let's start at the beginning. You trained as a chiropractic physician or a chiropractor, and what drove you into that career field? What did that look like for you? And then we'll see how that drove you towards real estate and financial freedom as well.
Awesome. Well, initially, I actually wanted to be an obstetrician. And then it turned into, look, I was an athlete growing up, and I had 2 uncles that were chiropractors, had very successful practices, and they had freedom, a different kind of freedom that you and I are going to dig into and talk about shortly. But they had freedom where they were their own boss. It wasn't patient A, patient B. They really got to know the families. They enhanced their life and well-being, and it was really, really attractive, especially since I wanted to have a family of my own, and I certainly wanted to become my own boss. So that was really how it got started with moving in that direction. I will tell you this, though. I grew up in a home, Alex, where my parents worked 9 to 5, building somebody else's dream, and I was kind of known as the odd duck of the family. I just was the girl that kind of was the one drinking the Kool-Aid, and my 4 brothers and sister were like, oh gosh, now what's she got on her mind? So I've kind of always lived that life of just knowing deep down inside that I'm a chick on a mission. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm free-spirited, and I've got a lot of grit, as you said. And so with that being said, I jumped into practice, and look, I loved my practice. I had a couple practices in Southern California. And I will tell you, along with that practice came 30 other headaches. I mean, team members of my staff that I had. And what I will tell you is during that time, I ate work, I breathed work, I slept with work. It literally owned me day in, day out. Many of you can totally relate, but we are the last to be paid. We make sure everybody else is well taken care of, and then we are the last to be paid. And what I noticed as I was in practice over the 13 years is that reimbursement started to get less and less and less. And I really wanted to move into something where there was a little bit more freedom, and real estate really got me excited. And then I will tell you that once I decided that I was going to pivot into real estate full time, and we'll get there, I will tell you this. Remember how I said that my family thought I was a little bit crazy and lost my marbles with drinking all the Kool-Aid? Well, so did my colleagues, because all they could see on the outside were these successful practices that drove droves of people into my practice. And so when they knew I was leaving to move into the real estate space, they too, along with my family, thought I had lost my marbles. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't truly in private practice. Even though I was in private practice, I really wasn't, because I was linked up with the healthcare system, and they're the ones that have ultimate control. So, Alex, I feel like you and I are winning because we found the breakthrough. And when you jump into real estate and you learn how to make money while you sleep and you get to have true freedom, I'll pause there because you can tell I'm getting excited. You just can never look back. And so there's something incredible that comes from creating your own destiny and making moves that others are just afraid to make. So I'll pause there, but that's a nice little start. Can you relate or what, Alex?
No, I can absolutely relate. And that's a great way to start things off, because a lot of folks who are listening to this podcast are probably coming from a place of burnout, a place of fatigue. They feel like they don't have any autonomy or control, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get some degree of financial freedom so that I can start this kind of snowball generation of financial freedom to ultimately buy my time back, to gain that control back again. And so I'm really excited to talk more and more about that today with you, because you've done it. I'm doing it right now. And it's just been awesome to be able to pivot and practice medicine, not because I have to, but because I want to. And so it's a great way to do it. Erin, was there a specific time in your practice where you're like, hey, it's time to go all in on real estate? And what were some of those like kind of beginning tips, tricks, or resources that you use to get started in real estate?
Man, that's such a loaded question, but I will start with this. I always knew that I wanted to get into real estate. I really just didn't know how. I didn't know how because I feel like I had odds against me. What do I mean by that? Well, number one, I didn't grow up from a wealthy family. And number two, I lived in Southern California, Huntington Beach to be exact, just outside of LA, between San Diego and LA. And it was like $1 million for a rental property that was 1950 built and 1,500 square feet. So that is not favorable. So I kind of had the odds stacked against me a wee bit, which means we have got to break outside, open up our eyes, be willing to look in other places other than where I live. And a lot of investors that you hear people say, invest in your backyard. I could not invest in my backyard. So of course I had to do some research, and I really started to just investigate just different states and what made the most sense. Guys, what do I mean when I say what made the most sense? I was looking for states where it was landlord friendly, meaning that I could get a tenant out in 30 days if they did not pay their rent. In California, you could squat for 2 freaking years and live for free. So I certainly didn't want to be that landlord that owned something and never received pay. And then number two, I wanted to know where was the lowest barrier of entry. What do I mean by that? Like, I didn't have bukus and bukus of cash just sitting in the bank. I wanted to know, where can I get the best bang for the buck? And for me, I will just fast forward it. It was Indianapolis, Indiana. And so what I did is I said, oh my gosh, I'm highly interested. I want to move to this area. And I know this sounds a little woo-woo, but I put it out in the universe and I said, look, I really want to move. This is the area that I'm going towards. And I kind of had a little bit of a big break. I walked into the gym one day, and I'm kind of fast forwarding this for you. I walked into the gym one day and one of my buddies said, hey, I know you really want to invest in real estate. Listen, I've got this friend who's got 6 properties. Y'all are never going to believe. Where were they located? I lived in Orange County, California, y'all. Where were they, Alex?
Indianapolis, gotta be.
Indianapolis, Indiana. So I said, you gotta be kidding me. Long story short, we went and had dinner together with his buddy that owned the properties. I did not just buy one. I ended up buying all 6. Why? Because the barrier of entry was so low, it seemed like it was impossible. It was $50,000 for roughly a 700 square foot house that was renting for $800. So I could not just buy one. I ended up buying all 6. And let me pause right there, Alex, because most people would say, well, where'd you get the money from? Here's the real truth. I didn't know where I was going to get the money from. I just knew that it was such a good deal that I was going to find a way, come hell or high water, to purchase all of these homes for $300,000. And so what I did have, I think I had like $150,000 in the bank, but I just went and found money in other places. Sometimes you dig a little deeper. Where did I find money? I don't know. Have you ever gotten those checks in the mail that you can write a check Well, I maxed out that credit card real quick and I used that. And then I struck up a deal with my father-in-law and he was my lender for, I think, $100,000. The bottom line is I found a way to make it happen. And that was my in. And I knew it was so good that I had to figure out how I was going to make it happen. And that was the beginning of investing in the single family space.
That is awesome.
What?
Yeah. Well, way to go from 0 to 6. So a lot of people are like, holy cow, that's crazy, which is awesome. And way to take action. I mean, that's the big thing. And I think I want to foot stomp what you said. Like, if you know you have a really good deal, it's risk mitigated, like go all in. You can find the money if the deal is good enough. And you did that. And that is awesome. What was it like? Was there any like mindset shift that happened for you when you were like, okay, I'm going from no real estate living in Huntington Beach to I'm buying 6 homes in Indianapolis and this seems destined. Yeah. Was there a mindset shift that happened for you where you were like, hey, holy crap, this is happening? Or did it just kind of work itself out from that perspective?
Listen, let me just tell you, I'm just a girl that thinks big. And I wasn't afraid because here's the thing. I'm not the specialist when it comes to property management. But here's the thing. They already had property management in place. And if I were to tell you, let me just tell you a little bit more about that. Guys, life is a negotiation. Everything you do is a negotiation. When someone tells you no, you find a work, or I will find a workaround and figure out another way to go about it and skin the cat. For example, when I took over these properties, there was already property management in place. 3 of them were being managed by a Section 8 management company, and the other 3 were being managed by another management company. And so when I got the 6 assets, both the management companies said, hey, well, can you bring all 6 of those properties and put them under my management? And guess what? The other guy said the same thing. And here was my response to them. You know what? I love that you're hungry and you want all 6 of these, and I would love nothing more than to give you all 6 of those. But to be honest, I'm going to see who takes care of me better. Is it going to be you? Or is it going to be you? And whoever takes me in and treats me like family and does me good, guess what? You're the one that's going to get my 6 properties. So we'll see where it goes, right? And so there you have it. It's about making sure that you have the right teams. And I think from there, Alex, it made it really, really easy after those 6 to go bigger and to go bigger. And so I think it's just the law of the first deal. It's the breakthrough. Your girl didn't just start with 1. She started with 6 and everybody else might be, that's crazy. But how can you really lose when you're the cash flow on these puppies were just ridiculous and could service the debt and then some, right?
Right. Yeah. It was secure. It was risk mitigated, like just great opportunity from that perspective. Well, I know you went from 6 to 26 fairly quickly. So let's talk a bit more about that. What was next for you after the initial 6-home portfolio?
Yeah. So listen, within 24 months, I did acquire 26 properties, but I want to be very, very clear about this. And this is part of the strategy. And I love sharing stories because they really help you understand who I am as a human. And I hope at the same time, as you hear this, not you, Alex, but all of your listeners out there, that there's always a way. It's about solving problems and figuring out how you can go bigger. And at the same time, remember, you don't have to do it alone. Get creative. That's the most fun part about this whole entire space. There are so many ways to skin a cat. There's a way to help everybody win because at the end of the day, it kind of is a team sport, even though it wasn't when I first got started. So let me tell you, I ran out of money real quick, right? You already heard I borrowed from my father-in-law. So listen what I did. This is really, really wild. I was the chick that found out after I bought those homes, my property manager, I love people. So I just water the seed of just people and how can I help you and so on and so forth. And I shared with them, look, I really want, one of them in particular, I really want to acquire more homes. I'm super hungry. I've got cash. Guys, I didn't have cash, but I put it out in the universe like, I got cash. I want to acquire more of these. Can you help me? You help me, I'll help you. You help me acquire properties, you're going to be managing them, right? And so check this out. He goes, listen, Erin, you got ripped off. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you paid $50,000 for these and I could get you the same house for roughly $35,000. $35,000. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, well, show me where they're at. Let's do some magic here. Long story short, he started to bring these homes to me. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't feel like I got ripped off, y'all. It was like, that was my barrier of entry, right? Like I had to pay to play and then you figure out the goodness, right? And so let me just tell you what happened. Remember, I had no money. But in Indianapolis, I learned something before when I decided that I was going to go into that market, that there was something called a double close. I didn't know a whole lot about it. Alex, you're familiar with a double close, right?
I am. Yep.
Kinda.
Yep.
Okay. So check this out. I said, listen, I don't know a whole lot about it. And we certainly didn't have Chat GPT at that time, right? So what did I do? I looked up a title company, the one that I closed with, and I had called them, and there was a lady by the name of Sally there. And I'll never forget this. I called her up, ring, ring, ring. Sally, this is Erin Hudson. How are you? Well, I'm good. She didn't really know me. But anyhow, when I started to talk to her, I said, listen, I just want to see if you could help a girl out. And she's like, well, what do you need? And I was like, listen, I heard there's this thing called a double close. And I'm just wondering, could you like walk me through how you go about it? And so I've got my little stick-it pads. And she's like, okay, well, first you have, you're going to buy a home and you're going to buy it from Bob. And let's just call him A. And so you would take the A and you tied up a contract with him and you're B. And you're going to buy that for $50,000. At the same time, you guys are going to close on June 1st. And Erin, you're going to go find somebody else who's going to be C, and you're going to close the same day, but you're not going to close for $50,000. You're going to close for $60,000. And then C, the person that's buying it for $60,000, is going to send his money to title and close on it on June 1st. And that $60,000 that goes in there is going to cover your $50,000, and you'll have extra of $10,000. Did that make sense, Alex? I hope I somewhat made it.
No, that was
clear.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. I'm like, wait a minute. Could you repeat that? Okay, great. And I'm taking ferocious notes. Long story short, that's exactly what I did. I ran out of money, right? So I had to get creative. So I did a little bit of the double close. At the same time, I also did this. This is a true real deal. I bought 3 properties for $100,000. I turned around and I sold 2 of them for the same $100,000, and I kept 1 for free. And then I would rinse and repeat that game. And especially for all you women out there, I'm going to say, I am on fire for women to win in this space, because I hate to say it, but it is kind of a man's world, but not for long.
Yeah, you guys are crushing it.
But here's the deal. Us women out there, I know some of you can relate. You want to go to the Marshalls or the TJ Maxx so you can get the cutest outfit versus going to Nordstrom. Because if you go to Nordstrom, you can get 1 outfit, but for the same amount of money, you can go buy 3 outfits at Marshalls or TJ Maxx. It's the same concept, right? Like you just want to get a really, really good deal, and there you have it. So I was able to rinse and repeat. And within 2 years, I acquired 26 rental properties, making some pretty insane, awesome mailbox money. I can make money while I sleep, and I just was on fire for it. And I'm going to pause here in just a second, but I want to share with you, when you get out in the marketplace and you're making big moves and people are watching, right? As a matter of fact, there was a growth event that I would go to like 3 times a year. And the lady that put on this event would call me up to the stage, and she would want to highlight all of the goodness that unfolded in my life, because it made her look really, really good. Like I was one of her students, and I was like, kept climbing the ladder. So what arose from that? All of these people that are out there at these events see her highlighting me and the growth happening exponentially. So all of these people started calling me and wanted me to help them get an investment property. And so I think this is really crazy, but it's really, really true. Within 3 years, I did over 200 buy and sell transactions to these folks. And check this out. The biggest thing that is mind-blowing to people is this. Guys, I had 26 rental properties. I had never been to Indianapolis, Indiana. But hold on, it gets better. I did not have a website. I did not have an assistant. I did not have another building. I did not have a phone number. It was my cell phone number people were calling. and 231 deals, and not one of my investors went to Indianapolis, Indiana. Why do I share that? It's not to say, oh, I'm so great and this, that, and the other. There's twofold that come from this. If people know you, like you, and trust you, they want to be linked to you, right? And then the other thing that I want to share from what I just shouted from the mountaintop about this is, I hope that some of you that are afraid to take action actually just heard the call, because I told you all of the things that could have been objections for me to move forward and transact business, but I didn't let it stop me. So I hope this resonates with you and it makes you go, oh my gosh, if this broad over here can do it and have success, and she's not even a real estate agent, she's just crafty and likes to negotiate, and at the end of the day, help people win at the game of life, then guess what? I think you can do something too. And this may very well be your call to rise.
Let's go. All right, we'll wrap up the podcast here. No, that was amazing. I think, yeah, I mean, so many things to take away. I think it boils down to kind of three main things. One, your willingness to take action. Two, your growth mindset. And then your willingness to just help other people win and realize like this is just such a relationship game. Real estate is, like you mentioned, a team sport. It's a relationship game. And that mailbox money was coming because you put in the work to find a good property manager who managed the properties well and partnered with you, and you took care of him or them, and they took care of you. And that's the way to do it. Yeah. Man, I love it. I'm fired up. I'm ready to like run through the wall or something because that is good. So the 231 deals that you did from folks just really kind of no website, no business, really no marketing, none of the above. What was that like for you, and what came out of that for you?
I could go in so many directions, but there's a couple things that I want to say about that is, look, we have to make the most of our time. We are only given such a short little bit of it. And how can you, when you start to do this industry, just in real estate, you have to go one-to-one. And the most beautiful thing that happens as you start to build, you no longer have to go one-to-one. It becomes one-to-many. I hadn't had that much success out of the gate with it. But I will tell you, when all of these people started to reach out to me, I knew because remember, I was slinging these deals between seeing patients, y'all. And so what I have to tell you is this, it got to a point that I couldn't take those calls anymore. So what did I do? I put on a webinar. Invited whoever wanted to come, and I shared with them, not that I am the expert and come with me. I did a full disclosure. I said, look, I've been at it for 2.5 years at that point. And I said, here's what I've been able to do. And I would love to help you win. Right. And I will never forget this one person puts in the comment, I have a question for you. I want to say foolishly, maybe not foolishly. I took the question live and I said, what can I do for you? And he goes, listen, I just have a question for you. Why in the world should I go with you? You've only been doing this for 2.5 years. And company ABC in Indianapolis has been at it for 10.5 years. Why should I go with you? And I remember feeling like there was a frog in my throat and I swallowed and I said, you know what? I said, you are wise. You are one wise guy. You probably should go with company ABC. They've been at it for a really long time. At the end of the day, I'm just sharing with you authentically what has worked for me and how I could possibly help you get in for a lower barrier of entry than company ABC is going to get you in for. And I remember getting off that call and thinking, holy smokes, I'm so glad that I was just authentic about answering that. But here's what I learned from it. When you take things off the table and you are true and authentic and have integrity, people want to work with you even more. And that opened up the floodgates. And so from there, guess what I did? How many of you remember Bigger Pockets? Bigger Pockets has this little, I don't even remember what it was called, but you could go in and put your numbers of the property that you're looking to purchase. You could put what the property management is, all the different things. And then you could add a little picture of the house, what it looked like. Here's what I did. I would go and I would find these homes that I was going to buy, and I would put them on a little performa. And from that call, I had folks just lined up that wanted to buy homes. And so I just said, you've got to create scarcity at the same time. And so I said, look, we've got a whole slew of investors. So I'm going to give you two options. Performa 1 with this property, Performa 2. If you want one, let me know. You have 24 hours to make the decision. Otherwise, it's getting passed to the next person in line, and you can go to the back end of the line and you can wait. Not that I didn't have people waiting. There were people that were hungry for this, and that worked for me. That I don't even, it just made it up and it just worked. And then lo and behold, 231 deals. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bigger Pockets. That's where a lot of us probably got started. And learned. That is awesome. Wow. Lots of different ways that we could take this too. I think, you had mentioned pre-recording that you did have some kind of failures and stumbling blocks along the way. And certainly, a lot of folks listening to this are like, man, real estate can be tough. It can be unforgiving. What are some failures or some learning opportunities, if you will, that you had along the way?
Man, I've had a handful of, that's the thing, right? Like our lives, like on social media, just like look like the highlight reel of the best life, right? It doesn't come without having to lick those wounds. There are many that I could tell you. So I will tell you, I have had massive epic fails, but those epic fails have been far surpassed with all of the wins. And had I been the weenie and given up when things got hard or shit hit the fan and I just turned it out and left, guess what? It wouldn't be just a failure for me. Alex can relate to this. This would be a failure to my legacy. I've got 5 kids and I run and I build for them because I am changing my generation, like the legacy that, from what my parents had. And not that they did it wrong. They did the best that they knew how. The thing is, when you know what you know now, you can't look back and do it differently. It's all about that family. So look, I've had massive fails. I mean, look, I'll tell you with all of those transactions, 231 transactions, probably one of the biggest things that blew my mind that also things are tough. When things go wrong, how are you going to respond? Are you going to cheat the system? Are you going to do what's right? And I will share with you one story that just literally just came to my head. There was 3 homes that I was purchasing, and I actually branched out a little bit in Toledo, Ohio as well, but Indianapolis was my main area. And I actually had bought 10 homes there. And then all of the sudden I had 3 homes that I was set to sell to 3 other people. And I will never forget this. The 3 people, different individuals, send in their money to title. And I'm supposed to be collecting on all that money because I owned those 3 homes. I bought them first and then I sold them to them. And those 3 homes, they sent their money in. I called title to find out where my money was. I hadn't received it. The next day they said, oh, it's coming. And something in my gut told me otherwise. It did not feel right. And I will tell you right now, listen to your gut, folks. I've had a few gut checks in real estate, but I knew it wasn't coming. Something told me that money was not coming. Lo and behold, I found out that my money disappeared. Over $125,000 disappeared. It ended up being a fraudulent title company that I had already transacted 10 other deals with in the previous 12 months. And it was a big Ponzi scheme of multiple millions and millions of dollars, all within a 4-day time frame that all of this went to hell in a handbag, and multiple other entrepreneurs that had been duped all at that same time. So anyhow, here's what I'm going to tell you from that. I never got the money. Therefore, I really don't have to release those 3 properties to those 3 folks that came in and bought these properties. But in every fiber of my being told me, stay true to your word. Stay true to who you are. I had to lick my wounds. I gave those properties over to the other folks and I walked away with a big loss, right? And so look, I will tell you, in real estate, they all can't be winners, but you definitely want to do your due diligence. And who would have ever thought that I needed to do due diligence on a title company that I had been referred to from another friend, right? So anyhow, that was a big lesson, but also it's a great reminder of who I am, and integrity comes first. And if you put people first and you do what's right every single time, you can't help but to win. And people will know you as a leader and a person that does right by others. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I can't imagine going through that. And you're right. The title company is not the person you think you have to do diligence on. So, man,
Yeah.
sorry that you had to go through that, Erin. That's rough.
Yeah.
Well,
No
I know
worries.
you pivoted ultimately, into multifamily. So let's talk a little bit about what drew you to multifamily and that transition and what that's looked like
Yeah.
for you as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll try and make this story quick, but it's an awesome one. I'll never forget a friend came and said, "Hey, listen, there's this multifamily event. It's a 2-hour course. They're going to just teach you about multifamily. Come with me." I was that girl that said, "Hell no, that's not for me. I am not a multi millionaire, and only millionaires buy apartment buildings." That was my stereotypical view on apartment buildings. They're just for billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires. Long story short, we went to that event. I sat in the front row begrudgingly with my arms crossed. And I was like kind of annoyed that I was there. And within quick amount of time, I felt like all of a sudden the Red Sea had parted. And I felt this moment. And what do I mean by that? I don't know. I feel like probably all your listeners have played the game Monopoly. And I felt like this girl that had been playing Monopoly and landing on Vermont. What is Vermont? In Monopoly, it is the cheapest rent that you can collect, right? Well, I had been playing Monopoly with my little Vermonts in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I just found out not that I'm just capable, but I'm worthy. I'm worthy to land on Boardwalk every single time. And I will fast forward that with this girl rolled up her mat, literally burned the boat. And within 6 months, I was out. I brought in other doctors to my practices and I literally packed up my kids. We moved to Texas because it was the land of opportunity and California was not. And I went all in. I knew that I had to leave if I was going to leave and jump into multifamily. I knew that I could not be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I knew that I literally had to take the pay cut, right? And I dug in from 2017 to 2019. And in May of 2019, I purchased my first apartment building in Texas. Yeah. So
That's
pretty
awesome.
wild, pretty
Yeah.
wild. But I joined an educational group. I think I paid $60,000 or something like that because I knew this. I knew that it was a team sport in multifamily, and I knew that I needed to know my craft in and out, upside down, inside out, because in the single family, I was not dealing with anyone else's money. When I had the 26 properties, I did not have any loans except for what I owed my father-in-law, and I got him paid real quick. I did not have any partners in my practices. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have any debt in my practices at all. So I was not a chick that wanted to take on all this extra debt, but in multifamily, you have partners. And so the fact that you get to work with others is cool, but the thing that is the most freeing is you get to play in your lane where it is your biggest strength and where you flow there with ease and it is enjoyable. So I'm going to pause there because what I mean by that is in the single family space, your chick that was working hard slinging deals was finding the deal, finding the buyers, finding the money, finding every part of it. I was wearing a hat for every single thing because I was a one-man show. And then to go into multifamily, and for us, there's 4 people on my team, but I get to stay in the lane where I most efficiently flow. And that is in the investor relations, director of equity relations, raising millions and millions of dollars to the tune of over $100 million. Why? Because I'm really good at it. I love people, I love money, and I love to see people win. And when people know that you are trying to help them out of the goodness of your heart because you want to see them up level and build a legacy that you can't destroy, people feel that. You cannot fake it out. People can smell manipulation from a mile away, but if your heart is in the right place, man, you can't help but to have success, for sure.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. If I didn't know you at all, I'd be like, yep, you're definitely on investor relations for sure. Because you're so good with words and encouraging, and you can just tell that your heart is in the right place. And so that is awesome. Well, let's talk about multifamily. What do you feel like are some of the unique advantages of multifamily investing?
Oh my word, where to begin? I think there's a few things. Look, I will tell you what I love, love, love. In the single family space, when you bought a single family rental property and you went to go sell it, it was based off what everything in the market was selling for around there. Well, imagine for a second, what if you got to link arms with an incredible team like with what Alex is doing and his crew? What if you got to link arms with an incredible team that has a track record, that knows the asset in and out, how powerful it would be if it was all predicated off the earnings of the bottom line. So let me break that down for a second. When you are buying apartment buildings, you are looking for an asset. Let's just paint the picture real quick. You're looking for an asset where, let's just say that the market is renting for $1,000 per unit. You can rent an apartment for $1,000, but what if you find an apartment building where they're renting for under market? The current owner, maybe they're 80 years old. I'm using a story of ours, that they're 80 years old and it's not $1,000. They're renting at $800. Why? Because they have the screwed up mentality that they think, oh my gosh, if I raise the rent, because I've owned this for 30 years and I have tenants that have been here for 20 years, that they're going to exit out. But what they don't know and they don't realize is that that tenant is not going to be able to go anywhere else where they can rent for $800 or for $1,000. So it would behoove them to raise the rent for $100, to that $1,000 mark. Well, that's when, I don't know, Alex or myself or our companies are going to swoop in and say, well, my goodness, there's already a margin right there of $200. Well, hold on. What if it gets better than that? Not only that, if you go in and you renovate that unit, that you can add an additional $300. Renovate the unit. Come on, let's break it down. If you go in and put $15,000 and reno the kitchen and put new appliances and carpet and wallpaper, or take off the wallpaper, then guess what? You get that $200 increase in rent. So now all of a sudden you found a way to take the $200 because of the market and then another $200 after you did the reno. You just increased the rent $400. Okay, but that's not just on one unit. If you have a 100-unit apartment building, multiply that puppy times 100. Anyways, the sky's the limit. So let's continue to stack. We're just going to stay at a high level. So if your income comes in and then you minus all the expenses that it costs to run that property, you're left with your bottom line. That's called your net operating income. Well, here is the goodness. That net operating income, the sweeter we make that, the more valuable the asset becomes. It is not based off the apartment down the street that sells or the apartment 3 miles down the street, because it truly is based off how great you are at really walking through and getting those tightened expenses down and increasing and juicing that bottom line. It's really going to dictate what you sell that apartment building for. And I know with my team what our capabilities are. We're really, really good at decreasing the expenses and increasing the bottom line and turning around and selling that puppy that's not meant to sell until year 5. We end up selling it at year 2.5 or year 3, right? And that's where it's at. So I'm going to pause there, but I hope that made sense.
No, that made a lot of sense. It's great. And the amount of value that you can add is massive. I mean, the $400 difference times 100, and then you look at NOI and cap rate, and you're like, we've just generated millions of dollars in value that is added based off that asset. And so that's where the real strength of commercial properties, multifamily investing really is because it's not based off the comps, like you mentioned. Yeah. It's not based off the single family house down the street. It's based off income that can be generated, what the cap rate is at that time. And oh man, it's a beautiful thing.
That's one though, Alex. That's why I'm telling you, I feel like I got to get on my soapbox. So there's a great, beautiful way to increase the income, but check this out. I don't know if any of you are following about bonus depreciation. Come on, can I get an amen? So check this out. Our bonus depreciation just got brought back to 100%. And so I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but it changed and it went down. I think our last was we only got 60% on that bonus depreciation. It's now brought back up to 100%. So what does that mean? I don't know. I'll give a kind of a roundabout idea. Let's just say that you're putting $100,000 into maybe one of Alex's storage units or I don't know, an apartment building. if there is a write-off that one can get, let's just say that if you put in 100,000, you can expect roughly, let's call it to be safe, $50,000 of that 100,000 that you could get as a write-off. Okay. Well, now that the 100% has come back, it's 100% of, call it that 50,000. Whereas last year it was only 60% of that 50,000. So why is that a win? It's because, listen, we are all, especially healthcare practitioners, are looking for a way to decrease their taxes. Now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but in most cases, unless you're a real estate professional, just a quick little drop, you have to have 750 hours that you are in real estate, working it, tolling it all a year. And if you're not, then you have to take that tax deduction when it sells at year 5, regardless either way, whether it's today or it's in 5 years, there's a way for you to win mightily and decrease your tax deduction and liabilities, or let's just call it your tax liabilities. There's a way to decrease those tax liabilities. And so what if you could get in the blocks and you were investing in one property every single year? Well, of course, as it starts to roll, those deductions are going to come every year as you're in the blocks and you're doing this. So it's really about wealth creation. We're going to preserve it. We're going to protect it. We're going to grow it. And I think the other thing is this. I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of the stock market, right? Like, it goes up, it goes down. And as we start to get older, we don't have time to make up ground. And so I would rather put it in something like such that number 3, we all know that rents are going up. If you look over a 10-year time period, you tell me when you can look back at a 10-year time frame where rents were less than they were 10 years. I mean, it's no matter what. Rents are only going to continue to go up. Whether you're in storage, whether you're in, healthcare, whether you're in multifamily and that type of thing. So it's just a matter of time. And I'm sure I'm missing something else that you could add there, Alex, but those are all great reasons why we love to invest in real estate.
So many great reasons: the appreciation, the depreciation, the accelerated depreciation, the tax benefits, the debt pay down. I mean, there's just so many great ways to win, and put it all together. And it's just absolutely incredible. I love it. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but I do want to talk about family and legacy. You mentioned you have 5 kids, you're building this for them. And I've seen, and it's been really cool to see you kind of involving your kids in investing. Why is that important to you?
Oh man, I feel like I need tissues when we start to talk about this. I just think, look, I know I've said a little bit about it before. It's just like, look, I didn't come from a super wealthy family and they certainly didn't own real estate. And I just think it's so powerful when you learn this to be able to pass it off to your children. What better way? Same thing, Alex. I don't know about you, but growing up, my parents didn't talk about money. We certainly didn't talk about at the dinner table. ROI, cash flow, retirement, those were not terms that were flung around my dinner table. So my hair raises when I say this because I am here to make a difference and an impact, not just for my children, but for their children's 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 children. So when you walk into I just moved into a new home, so it's not on the wall right now, but in my home, in my office, I have a whiteboard. And my whiteboard, my children can attest to, have all the assets that we've purchased within our company. And we're at like 26 properties that we've purchased. I think in 2021, we purchased 15 apartment buildings alone. So I know what we're made of. But look, when you come and you find one of these apartment buildings as an operator, I want to be very clear about this to the listeners. There's something called an acquisition fee. And an acquisition fee is something what is absolutely hands down. You want to make sure your operators are getting an acquisition fee because they are working on your behalf day in and day out to find the best properties that have the most upside, that are in phenomenal markets, that have great demographics, that have lots of different companies that are doing business in that location. They're going to go out there. They're going to walk the property. They're going to shop the comps. The list goes on. They're going to go find loans. They're going to find the best loans. They're going to make sure that they make it advantageous. And for doing that, they get something called an acquisition fee. Not to mention, they have to babysit this asset and make sure it performs over a 5-year time frame. So they are earning their cut. So don't be upset when you see an acquisition fee. It is well deserved. Now, going back to my whiteboard, on all of these assets that our company has purchased to the tune of 25 of them, there are acquisition fees that are paid. And you better believe on that whiteboard are those acquisition fees. And it is not to be braggadocious. It is so that my kids, every time they pass by the door and they see my whiteboard, they know what's coming up. They know if another asset's being purchased. They know if how much I'm going to make off that. They know how much their mama made every single year. Why? Because that's on the whiteboard too. I didn't grow up from that. I want my kids to be so tuned in, not to be all about money, but to understand that they're in control. And if you write it on the board, you see it, you eat it, you breathe it, you drink it, you embody it. And my kids don't have a filthy feel about money. They know that they have to work hard in order to earn that money, right? Look, in my house growing up, my parents said to us, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. And so I grew up hearing, we don't have the money. And I swore with every fiber in me that I would never walk around saying, I don't have the money. I would say it's not a wise purchase. And so my kids know we want to put stuff into an asset that's going to make them money while they sleep at night, right? So I encourage you. I don't care if you're a doctor and you're not in real estate, start putting that money up there and let your kids see where it's going. Why? Because you work really, really hard to bring home the bacon. And it's important, and you're doing your child a service by letting them know how hard it is for us to live, to pay all the bills, and all the things we have to do to keep the lights on and for them to be able to live in a beautiful, healthy, warm home. So shall I pause there or go into what I do?
I just want to say I love that, and I think that is huge, and we had similar upbringings. Money was kind of like a curse word, if you will, and similar humble beginnings from that perspective for sure. And I felt the same way. I was like, I never want my kids to feel like that weight or that pressure of money and where's it going to come from, and all those sorts of things. So I think that's amazing. I do want to just throw a funny story out there real quick. I asked my son Jack, he's 5, the other day. We were talking about money, and we were talking about the house and who pays for the house and all those sorts of things that we live in. Luckily, we house hack our basement, so our tenant pays for it. But I asked him, I said, Jack, how much do you think it costs for a house? How much money? And he's like, oh, I don't know, $59. And I was like, oh, don't I wish, pal? Don't I wish? But it led to a really good conversation of kind of explaining, hey, buddy, not only do we have to pay the mortgage, we have to pay for the electricity and the water and all these other things. And he had no idea. And so I think it's really important to even just have those simple conversations, even when they're 5 years old, because they're gonna start picking up those things. And your kids see how hard you're working. My kids see how hard I'm working, and they really start to value money more so. And they see, hey, dad and mom works really hard for that. I want to do the same thing when I get older. So would love to hear any other tips or tricks.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that. I've got a couple things that I will tell you that I think are great for listeners to hear, is that we're not meant to live comfortably. We're supposed to be comfortable, but everything in our life is not supposed to be just sheer comfort. A few things with my kids, because kids just really are what get me going. I will tell you also in that beginning stages when I was buying single family rental properties, guys, it became a game. That's what I was getting at with the whole shopping at TJ Maxx. I'm sorry, I kind of lost you on that part. Is if we take every dollar off the table, it adds up. And when you're buying these $30,000 homes, we're able to acquire more because we're not buying the prettiest Nordstrom outfit. We're buying 3 of these smaller little outfits or smaller houses, right? We don't need, it's not to feed our ego. We don't need to have this beautiful investment property. We don't want to be slumlords, but we just need to be able to acquire. So when the kids were at a very young age, when all this was going on, they would ask for stuff at the store. And I would say, no, I'm sorry, that's not a wise choice. And I will never forget my child at 11 years old saying, oh, why? Because you just want to go buy another investment property? And I laugh about it because I'm like, I love that that's what they're saying and that's what they're thinking, right? But guys, it doesn't matter how much money, even if you start to make a ton of money, you still want to be making sure that you're doing all of those things and you're not going, oh my gosh, let me just go live lavishly because I built it. So for example, I've just moved into a new house. I wanted something smaller. I've got, the 4,300 square foot home that also had a mother-in-law suite. And when I was living in there, and I hate to go there, but look, I went through a 3-year wild, crazy divorce, and I'm living in this house, and every dollar just matters anyways, right? But I have this mother-in-law suite, and I ended up putting a tenant in there, and I ended up renting it out. And my kids go, "What in the heck? That's the mother-in-law suite. What are you doing renting it out?" Guys, get your feelers and thinkers out there. This was 275 square feet, tiny, with its own little kitchenette, bathroom. I was renting it for $1,025. It was the most beautiful teaching moment to tell my children, why would I let that thing just sit there? I don't have a mother-in-law or whatever that needs to go move in there. If I can make that sucker churn and bring in cash, so the $1,000 that I brought in, well, guess what? I showed them that was the payment for the rent for my daughter's school, right? So I'm like, that is paying for that, right? And so it becomes an absolute teaching opportunity for them that they've always got to be thinking like that. How can we make that make money? How can we duplicate that? How can we make it our bitch?
Love it.
It's like, how can we get it to go, right? And so anyhow, one other thing that I will share with you that was really powerful. Look, getting into the multifamily space, my kids couldn't really easily get into that, right? My oldest daughter, she's 27 now, she bought her first single family rental property in Indianapolis at the age of 16. Okay. Wow. Well, how did we do that one? Let me just tell you the story because it's super cool. She was 16. She wanted a car. She only had $5,500 in her, she had $5,500 in her bank. And I said, listen, you can go get a car, a used car, or you could take that money that's in your bank. We'll put it in a Roth IRA, and I'll sell one of these homes, these $30,000 homes to your Roth IRA, and I'll only make you pay $5,500 for it. So she got all mad and was like, I just want a new car. And I said, listen, just sleep on it and let me know what you decide in the morning. I don't care if you do or if you don't, but if you have your own car, you're paying for your own gas and you're paying for your own insurance and you can continue working at my practice, right? She wakes up the next day and she goes, okay, fine. I'll buy it with my Roth IRA, like all pissy. And I was like, well, you don't have to. She's like, no, I want to because it's an asset. Like, I know I need to, right? So you're teaching them at a young age. So that was one. Well, then going into the multifamily space, guess what? The kids can't get in that space. So what did I do? We had a home on 5 acres and it was an Airbnb, and we buy everything with intention for multiple options, right? Down at the bottom, there was a pond down there, and I wanted to put tiny homes down there. And so we built shipping container tiny homes, and my kids had their own little Airbnb that was down by the pond. And what I would do is they would be the one to manage that and greeting the guest and everything. And this was back in 2020. And they were greeting the guests and everything. And then I said, listen, if y'all want payout, we're going to do quarterly payouts, but I need a spreadsheet. And then together we're going to go through the dailies to make sure everything, we got to dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure they're accurate. My daughter at the time, who's 14, my son was 15. My daughter, who's 14, goes, Mom, I don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet. And my son, who's 15, goes, oh, it's okay, Taylor, I'll do it for you, but there's going to be a 5% fee of your earnings. So It just created this beautiful, it was always a challenge, and whose is doing better. And it was like this around the dinner table of, whose was outperforming, right? So there's always ways to get your kids involved. And let me just tell you, from the shipping containers at, the 3 of them that we had there, it literally opened up a door because they were so successful. And then we went on to create them at the lake with 27 of them I have on waterfront. And then by the wineries, we've got another 15. And so it just birthed all this excitement. And so there's just multiple assets in real estate that our family is in. And it lights me up to be able to talk about it with the kids. Super fun.
That's so cool. Well, and they're learning a skill that really matters. That's really going to translate, right? This probably isn't something that they were getting, or would not have gotten in public school if that's the case. And so what a cool skill to teach them and show them the hard work that you're doing, but also bring them along on the journey. And I think that they just absolutely love that. And no doubt that's going to set them up for success and their kids up for success and the whole family tree. So that is amazing. Well, Erin, I want to be really respectful of your time. I could talk to you for another hour easily, but I want to be respectful of your time. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see new investors make? And then I want to follow up with how folks can reach out to you.
Yeah, nope. I think that I would tell you probably the biggest thing is that I like to say it like a horse race. You've got the jockey, you've got the horse, and this is my analogy for it. I think that the general public that wants to invest, they tend to get tantalized by the horse, i.e. the property. It's in this beautiful area in Dallas. It's a 2025 build and it's so pretty. And then I think that they get tantalized by that, but they should be getting tantalized by the operators, the company, i.e. we call that the jockey. So when you go to the horse races, you don't want to be betting on the most beautiful horse. You want to be betting on that jockey because at the end of the day, the jockey is the one that gets that horse across the finish line. And so let's dig into that real quick, a little bit deeper. You want to make sure that the team that you are working with has a track record that is stellar. Yeah, they can go and buy 25 apartment buildings like we have, but how many have we exited out of? We've exited out of 10 of them. What is the track record, Erin? What was your exit like? What was the actual return annually? How long were you in them? And you want to make sure that they have a great track record. But above all, here's what I would say. You want to dig in, learn about that team. And when I send people to my website, I tell them, listen, I can talk numbers to you all day long, but what I would love more than anything is for you to go to our website, learn about our team, read their bios. You're either going to get a feel good there that says, ooh, this aligns. They're all about philanthropy. They help people that can't help themselves and they support the vets or whatever it may be. You want to make sure there's alignment there because if there is alignment, then you check that track record and then it is a absolute yes. So anyhow, that's the advice that I would give there because look, we have to understand that not just because we're educated, Alex, doesn't mean it's a tough craft to learn the ins and outs of everything. So you have to be reliant and have a trusting relationship with that person that you are looking to work with because it's not just for a short time. Usually it's a 5-year, that you become partners with. So you just want to make sure you're working with the right crew that has good heart, has your best interest at hand, and they're not money hungry suckers. They're just ones that want to grow wealth and continue to do that year over year.
Love it. That is a great answer. Well, Erin, this was powerful. Thank you for showing us, what wealth is all about. And it's more than numbers for sure. And it's about that freedom and that legacy and the purpose, all of which you really embody. So thank you so much for that. How can folks reach out to you if they want to learn more, they want to potentially invest with you or partner with you?
Sure. There's 2 ways. You can actually just go straight to our website, which I would encourage you. It's thequattroway.com. And that Quattro is, it's TheQuattroway.com. And then you can always find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Dr. Erin Hudson, or go there. That's probably best. And listen, I will tell listeners, anyone that has questions and they would love to get on a call with me, I would be more than happy to give you 15 minutes of my time and we can just explore and see how we can help you move your needle forward, answer any questions you have, because if I help other people get what they want, I already get what I want. And it's about sowing goodness into the world and being a resource. And other people have helped me. So I'm here to help others.
That's awesome. Well, you've no doubt helped a lot of people today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, it's been Dr. Erin Hudson, Dr. Alex Schlow with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast, signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.